All right, I think I'm online. Welcome. Let's see here. Gotta get this going. Keep having this weird thing happen with my. Oh, well, of course, now it's gone. How about that? All right, let me exit this. And let me do this. Okay. Sorry to everybody who's already here, or to whoever is here, I should say. All right. I should do something at least, right? You need some weight and hold. Tunes, perhaps. Okay. I've had that Arcade Fire song in my head a lot lately. I could always do that one. Something filled up my heart with nothing. Someone told me not to cry. But now that I'm older, my heart's grown colder, and I can see that it's a lie. Children, wake up, hold your mistake up. All right, that's enough. I think I'm ready. All right. I should have done one a little bit more upbeat than that. It is a pretty song, though. That's the Arcade Fire song "Wake Up" has actually been pretty transformative in my life at different times. It just seems like it. I hear it and it resonates with me differently. But anyways, tonight's topic is going to be about, well, just kind of showing you that I do take energetics seriously. I do get that a lot of times there's a lot of fluff and nonsense surrounding things involving, a lot of people say raise your frequency, or we talk about ascension, or we talk about um, things like being multidimensional beings or having a higher self that guides us, things of that nature. Um, I think when you're a person unfamiliar to it and you hear a lot of these things thrown at you, there's a tendency to kind of like get frustrated by it, throw your arms up and say, okay, that all sounds good, but can you show me some data? I mean, can you just give me something to go off of that could tell me that this isn't just a bunch of garbage that you just say to feel better? And I guess from a certain standpoint, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess if something makes a person feel better or a group of people feel better, especially if you understand energetics, that's kind of everything. Whether you can make a bunch of people feel good, bad, indifferent, whatever, as a collective, there is a certain, what I want to say, there's a certain power in that, I guess you could say, as far as the ability to change things for the better or worse. And especially when you're not conscious of how much these things impact one another, how much our energy fields interact with one another, and it's a lesser understood thing. I guess it's more easy to look at behavioral things more as personal grievances as opposed to transfers of energy, or how am I trying to say this, folks? I probably could use some coffee, to be honest with you, but I really wanted to do this tonight. So I put this picture here on the slide to show you something that I do. Not all of the process, I left a couple pieces out, but that's actually something that's dealing with frequency, water, vibration, energy, our perception of numbers and symbols relative to our physical reality. And I personally believe that we exist in a universal plasma field that is being bent and shaped through one another, from one another, to one another, and that the universal plasma field is, and I'm thinking this more and more every day, and I'm pretty steadfast in it now, that what this universal plasma field truly represents is God, singular or plural, whatever you perceive, or however it processes through you. The point would be that th- no one really knows how we got here. We can all hypothesize, but we know that it seems to be something that continues on and on and on, and we don't really know where it began, and we don't really know where it'll end. And I would argue that it's never going to end. That we are nothing's ever going to end. I mean, there's always going to be something around or whatever. I mean, I don't think we have to excessively hypothesize. I guess it's interesting to hypothesize on whether or not there was like a big bang that started all this or whatever. But I mean, I think even if you were to, even if you accept that, um, I don't know, it seems to me almost like it's designed to remove the wonder from it. Like there had to be this massive event that started it all. I guess, maybe in the physical reality that we exist in now, but it came from another one, and it's a mirror of another one, or it's an inverse of another one. But let's get deep into the material because I'm kind of rambling here, and I don't really want to. But that's the core concept as we start here, folks. What I'm doing with this, in case you're wondering, I just took this a little bit ago, and quite literally, this is just me inputting signal relative to Earth brainwave into crystals that I've had on my person and carried with me for a long time. They're not of any particular value. They're actually probably some of the lowest valued crystals that I've ever owned. And actually, because of all the events that have gone on and various losses and whatever, that's kind of what I've got left is these. And so I've stuck with these crystals. I've used them over and over again. And why? You know, it's not magic, it's not wizardry, it's not sorcery on any level. And I'm not a person that's really into those things or into any sort of strong occult beliefs. I do it because I'm conscious and aware that nearly every place that I experienced very strong synchronicities that were very real to me, and these are the kind of things you can't explain externally to people. They either accept it or not. It either happens to them or it doesn't. If they don't experience it, they couldn't possibly know how wondrous it is. They couldn't possibly know. They can only imagine what you experience, and so you can't always try to like convince everybody that it is what it is. When it's supposed to arrive at them, it will. And I think the best thing that you can do is just put as much information out there in your own unique way. And if it resonates with the right people, it'll resonate with them. You know, some people have covered this material for years, this type of thing. And just because of the way they said it to me, it just doesn't click. For whatever reason. It just like for me, I can't listen to them. It has to come from a certain type of person who has well, number one, they have to have something kind of like what you see there to get into my mind. You have to appeal to me at this level. If it's all just this, Gaia Mother Earth, if it's all just, well, you know, we're living in a multidimensional, you know, okay, great. But can you whiteboard that for me a little bit? Can you explain it in more detail? Just some things, some basic things. So I'll just tell you what I'm doing here. I'm conscious and aware that the earth is relatively about 60-70% water, and the human body is about 60-70% water. And because I personally believe that we create the earth by bending the universal plasma field and having an understanding of what Earth is that's very similar across the board, that we literally manifest what we exist in here on this in this physical reality, that our bodies are conduits of the universal plasma field interacting with other brain hemispheres, forming a whole series of circular grids that go all over the place. But ultimately, it extends into what this biofield is that I've talked about, the trinity of human energy, and maybe I'll just play that clip and then come back to it. But um, effectively, that we are creating this reality with one another, and that the earth has a brainwave which is 7.83 hertz, and that is the Schumann resonance, and it fluctuates and it has harmonics to it. And there's also a um, within the earth's crust and within certain soil concentrations in certain areas. I'll give you an example. I was in Santa Cruz. Strange, right? You know, my name is Cruz. I go to Santa Cruz. I'm there for a little while, and wow, the synchronicities were like you would not believe. And if you knew where I was not right on the coast, but pretty close to it. And there is a pyramidal structure underwater. They even named it that. I don't have a map here to show you guys, but I was aware at the time that there is some degree of a pyramid formation underwater. And then as you ascend up the hill, um, there's the mystery spot. And the mystery spot is a place where there's all kinds of gravitational anomalies. Some people think it's authentic, others think that it's all made up. It's a little bit of both. They do things to sort of exaggerate a naturally existing phenomenon, but there is something special about the area, no doubt. Um, and I, yeah, guys, if you're just so you know, like the first few minutes of this presentation, I was just kind of mumbling and singing badly. So I probably lost most of the audience there, anyways. I wasn't even trying to do any singing tonight. But, anyways, while I was there, I had these crystals that you see in that picture, and every single thing was synchronizing to me. Like, I don't care if the movie I was watching was made yesterday, if it was made, decades ago. The things in the film would synchronize with what I was doing. It's like I mean, really, it seems silly and ridiculous until you understand like how much it just matches what you're doing, and you're thinking to yourself like that had to have been planned, or it almost hits you that way. Like, how could this be happening this way? Well, then as the year started to go on and everything, I started to see this connection between crystals and what we experience every day. um I really started to believe all these things, as far as like, well, I'll give you an example. Let me get this on the screen really quick. All right, this is why I made this drawing today, and I've done this on a whiteboard. For those of you who join more frequently, you've probably seen me draw this a million times, or no, however many times. And this is how we perceive reality, if you ask me. And so, without, here, let me see this. All right. So, right in here, think of the pineal gland as like the center of your brain. You have left hemisphere, you have right hemisphere, depending on which way you're standing, doesn't really matter. The point is, this pineal gland is covered with crystals. I repeat, that pineal gland in the center of your brain, just like up here, has crystals. They're piezo responsive. Piezo responsive means that they will respond, they will actually interact. You can make the crystals do things, splash with color, as it were, when frequency and vibration ping against the pineal gland. So, those three things you see down there around your pineal gland, you have a crystalline brain if you think about it. It's the same way you have televisions that are LCD, that are liquid crystal displays. Well, your brain and how you perceive reality is a bit of an inverse of that liquid crystal screen, the LCD monitor that you use, or the LCD screen that you use. It's within you. And your first sign that this is true should be, all right, I know that I see sunlight, yet my brain, the light never reaches the back of it, but I'm aware that all of this processing is done in the back of my brain. Now let's go back to the chart here. All right. So what I'm telling you is from hemisphere to hemisphere, this is outputting right here. These hemispheres are outputting extremely low frequency ELF. Okay. So, the term ELF is almost always known in the news for something negative, like, because let's face it, folks, I mean, the reason why we have so much negative information relative to extremely low frequency is because when you get down to it, it's at the core of how we perceive reality. If you're going to have a hack into something, if you're going to be a real hacker, there's nothing you would want to hack more than extremely low frequency within the human brain, where all of the central processing occurs and how those central processes bridge to other ones, and you create our physical reality. So why are devices like HAARP so dangerous? How is it that you have something like HAARP? And those who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll just pull that up really quick. I did some material on it today, but I'll get onto that on Twitter. But for those unfamiliar, HAARP is high frequency active auroral research program, and the antennas look like this. The thing I need you to know, though, is that HAARP exists in many different places. It's not simply in Alaska. There are multiple HAARPs. Lots of people have thought to do this. I wouldn't say they're all over the place, but I have seen similar antenna arrays on a much smaller scale in different pockets and different places. So I'm aware that these inverted omnidirectional antennas have some other purpose, and I've seen ones that are just more. You can tell they pre-existed the HARP project because the form factor of the antennas and the tower masts are way bigger. They didn't have as many of them. I see examples of this up in Bothell, Washington, where I grew up as a kid, and I went back and visited, and I looked at it on a Google Earth map, and I was like, well, that just looks like they've got like a 3 antenna, HARP array on top of that hill. It could be something else, and it could be there for a different purpose. I don't really know, but it wouldn't surprise me because, again, they put these things on hilltops. That amplifies their influence. They're inverted omnidirectional, which means that instead of it like being like an umbrella that rains the signal down from that one stick, like the pole goes up like this and then the antenna like rains down on the ground. These ones are designed to go up into the air. Okay. So that's what those are that you're seeing on the screen. They're inverted omnidirectional antennas that go, well, I'm not entirely sure if they're omnidirectional, but I'm guessing. Okay. It looks like they are. Of course, they can do beam forming and all kinds of other things, but we won't get into those like more loftier discussions. That's even getting to some territory that I barely understand. But let's see what some of their capabilities are. Well, generating extremely low frequency waves in the zero point 0.1 hertz range. These are next to impossible to produce any other way because the length of an antenna is dictated by the wavelength of the signal it emits or receives. All right. Research has included plasma line observations. Interesting, right? Plasma is one of the 4 fundamental states of matter. It contains a significant portion of charged particles, ions, and/or electrons. The presence of these charged particles is what primarily sets plasma apart from other fundamental states of matter. Then you get into what is bioplasma, right? So, like within the human body, you have plasma that's extractable. You can actually get a bag of plasma, transfer it from person to person. What's bioplasma? It's the aether form of it. It's the dissipating plasma as it exits your body. in ways that don't require an IV or any type of extraction, yeah, it flows in and out of you. You're 60, 70% water. You can sort of, you're in a constant cycle of rehydration and evaporation, correct? We can all agree. If if water wasn't exiting your body in more than one way than just, the excretion cycle, bodily functions and whatnot. I mean, you also sweat. You also, there's all kinds of ways that water leaves your body. And then once you get past the visible layers, you have the non-visible layers, and that's the bioplasma. It's just as it dissipates, just like you can see steam sometimes, right? You can see mist in the clouds. You can see fog sometimes. Think of it once it dissipates beyond fog. Fog is somewhat visible water layers right in front of you. You can see it floating around, okay? Well, if you can try to visualize your biofield similarly, it's this multicolored but not visible to most people, although some claim they can see them, and I actually don't doubt them. I know there's people that can see auras, and I would just argue that an aura is the non-physical made visible to those who can see it layer of bioplasma. And and so again, what HAARP does here beyond that, producing high density plasma clouds in the Earth's upper atmosphere, underground imaging. That's where I think we're getting kind of interesting here. Because now you're dealing with two processes that are almost like, like similar to what the human body is always doing, the human body and brain, and how it's interacting with the earth layer and the ionosphere. Because our bodies, our entire chakra system is this conduit for the universal plasma field. So can people change weather? Of course they can. The natives know this. Native Americans, the tribes, they do rain dances. Why? Because they work. They wouldn't do it if it wasn't effective. I mean, again, it's easy to call these things, quote, primitive, but no, we have a primitive understanding of things that pre-existed us. We act like everything is Western society oftentimes. We're in this stubborn mode of, saying, well, if I don't see it plugged into something, it couldn't possibly work. If I don't see something that's measuring it in a way that's tangible to me right now, it couldn't possibly be a thing. I'm kind of that mind. But this is what kind of ended all that for me, because once I had enough tangible data sets to go, okay, wow, now you know what? There's something there. There's something there. I had to just believe it. And hang on here, folks. So getting back to this image, we have what HAARP has already inside us. There's lots of different frequencies flowing through us. We're a conduit of all frequencies. Again, our entire beings are frequency, energy, and vibration, just like the documentary. There's a documentary called Resonant Beings of Frequency. A lot of truth in that. There's a lot of things going on in there that's absolutely true. It's a great introduction to this type of material in ways that I'm not even doing justice to right now within this presentation. But what you have to think of then is you are constantly interacting with the universal plasma field, and so is everyone around you. Okay. Which means that this process here, surrounded by crystals with the pineal gland, you have the brain wave. Sorry, you see the mouse kind of like making that up and down thing. I'm trying to do the cycle of a brain wave here. So the brainwave emission comes out of it goes in and out of the pineal gland. It splashes against that crystalline liquid crystal pineal gland that you have that's surrounded by those piezoresponsive crystals. And your eyes are the input output of energy. They say that some people just have these really powerful eyes, or they just you're magnetically drawn in by somebody's eyes. Well, there's been actual research on this. People that were like more intuitive and had stronger psychoenergetic ability. Yeah, there is something within their eyes specifically. Okay. And I also, now that we're talking here about this, I'm gonna put that away. Hang on. Where is that? Here it is. Okay. All right. So the one I want to do now is, guys, because I'm a little bit. I really should have had coffee before I started this, and I'm sorry that I'm a little bit whatever. But all right. Let me get that. Okay. Those unfamiliar, this is called the Gateway Report. It was declassified a long time ago, several years ago at least. It was declassified, but it has a lot of information that is pretty useful to people, I would say. Hang on. Okay. Hang on here. All right. This is the part I wanted to get into. 8, the role of resonance. Sorry, guys. All right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, white boy knows. He says, yeah, HAARP is the imitation. We are the real. You got it, man. You got it. That's right. So let me get into this. The role of resonance. Brain coherence through entrainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why Gateway works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristics of deep transcendental meditative states, which brings about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates throughout the entire body. According to Bentov, this change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentov describes the role played by bifurcation, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks in two to go into the legs, part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of this sine wave pattern, when measured with a sensitive seismograph type instrument, is about 3 times the average of the sound volume produced by the heart when it is operating normally. Bentov's biomedical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to and impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself via the fluid filled third and left ventricles located above the brainstem. An electromagnetic pulse. All right, folks. Remember the other picture. An electromagnetic, when I'm saying this, remember the pineal gland, the eyes, the pineal gland, the circles, okay? Sorry, I lost my part here. An electromagnetic pulse is then generated, which stimulates the brain to raise the amplitude and frequency of brain output. Just as Dr. Trumlow observed in his research on the effects of the tapes, also the brain is contained in a tight membrane called the dura, which is in turn cushioned by a thin layer of fluid located between it and the skull. As the coherent resonance produced by the human heart in a state of profound relaxation reaches the fluid layer surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern in which the brain moves up and down approximately 0.005 to 0.010 millimeters in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforcing character of resonant behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. In this way, and this is important here, in this way, the entire body, based on its own micro-motion, functions as a tuned vibrational system which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionospheric cavity, which itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 hertz. Of this process, Bentov states, remember guys, that's the Schumann resonance, even though this report doesn't specifically call it that, but that's what they're saying there. Human brainwave matches Earth brainwave. Important, okay? This is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 kilometers, or just about the perimeter of the planet. Doesn't that blow your mind, folks? It should, because think about what I just said. When you hear me say that we're creating all of this, how can you deny it when you know that? Your brainwave, human brainwave, extremely low frequency, will travel 40,000 kilometers, or the circumference of the Earth, and even more. So you're bending plasma, and it makes a complete cycle all the way around the Earth. That's karma. Everything you do returns. Every thought form entity finds its way back. See, now you understand, I would hope, if you didn't before, but I think most of this audience does, why spirituality is such an important component once you get the science of this. If you don't understand the spiritual component, the science can have a very damaging effect on you, on your psyche, depending on the person. It can motivate you to do things good, bad, or whatever, right? So this is occurring at a very long wavelength. I'm going to repeat this, of about 40,000 kilometers, or just about the perimeter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. That means, when attenuation, if you're not familiar with the term, just means, like reduces or lowers, or things that get in its way will block it from continuing. So that means that it goes through water, it goes through walls, it goes through trees, it goes through human bodies. Nothing really makes E.L.F stop. It'll go through Faraday cages. It does not matter. Okay, continuing. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and the fields making up our bodies. Just like I said, sorry. It is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal. Consequently, the gateway process is designed to rather rapidly induce a state of profound calm within the nervous system, and to significantly lower blood pressure, to cause the circulatory system, skeleton, and all other physical organ systems to begin vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. The resulting resonance sets up a regular repetitive sound wave which propagates in consonance with the electrostatic field of the Earth. All right. So that thing I showed you earlier, I'll get back to that really fast. That's what I'm talking about here. I'm just trying to give you a better visual of it. And then once you understand that that's how you're generating brainwave in your 3D projection and that it goes all around the entire Earth, well, guess what? You're making the Earth along with all the other people that you share it with. You're just forming that, it just goes whoosh, whoosh. It's funny, actually. A friend of mine earlier today said it, used the term instant karma. That's kind of what I guess you could say this is a seventh of a second. That's pretty fast. A seventh of a second. You bent plasma. What you just thought. I want you to think about this. Really think about it. This is what's so cool about this. Everything we just discussed here as a collective, there's only maybe 10 of us here, right? Talking in this room. You're listening, I'm whatever, but we're sharing some ideas. And we're bending the plasma field together. And all of us are thinking this simultaneously. And within a seventh of a second, it travels all around the world and enters through all those conduits of energy, everything that's happening, every human consciousness, people that you've never even spoke to. It's already traveled all the way around. It could have gone right through them. But did it? No. I mean, what I mean to say is, yeah, it did, but it it's not like it always hits everybody just like that. Sometimes, yeah, something travels from around the world and it just arrives at you. A thought or an idea arrives at you, and you don't even know how it got there. But I ask you, knowing what you know with that gateway experience, is what I'm doing with this. So if I tell you that I use a frequency that's generated, that I pump through those crystals and into the water that I drink, and there's a couple other things that I do with it relative to my own DNA. See, all I'm doing is synchronizing myself using the things that I know. That water is now programmed. What's it programmed with? Crystals, the energy of crystals, and water is now has that resonant energy added to it via the crystals and the Schumann resonance. Yes, it's a radionics device. And so that's why I put up there, I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I say, when you hear me speak on energetics, radionics, water frequency, vibration, energy, be assured that I take it seriously and I know what I'm doing. I don't pull the phraseology out of my ass and just repeat it. I learned it, I know it, I live it, and I still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to know, and I still have a lot to live. That might be a good bridge into this slide. Timelines, dimensions, and higher self. Right now is a timeline. 1 second ago is a timeline. 1 second from now is a timeline. The trinity of time perception is actually us existing in three harmonics simultaneously, all of which reference back to and from one another via human earth brainwave. Schumann resonance, just like what we just talked about in that gateway experience report. So, in case you just think it's all fluff, I don't know, guys. I mean, the US Army took it pretty serious. The Defense Intelligence Agency took it pretty serious. And they were all worried because at the time we were in the Cold War, although some won us in another one. But yeah, those reports were written during the Cold War. And the thing that they were really afraid of was how much the Russians knew. Well, the good news, folks, is that people tend to go in one direction or the other with this. And the telltale signs of when they've gone towards the negative are always there on the surface and obvious. And when they're going in a more life creation and energetic sense, and they're doing things to, bring people together, bring about a more peaceful society, things of that nature, then things are working in another. What we have going on, and I'm not try to get political right now, folks, but I can assure you that Americans, even back in this, even as late as the 70s and 80s, they were pretty scared about how much other countries, specifically Russia, knew about this field. And the thing I think that because Nazis were so in control of the Cold War narratives, and just like NATO, NATO was just effectively extension of that. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to try to get into a political discussion here. I already told you guys my thoughts on what's going on over in Ukraine. But there's something that's actually kind of that you got to pay attention to relative to how much the Nazis know about this and how much we didn't really get rid of them, and how they have global partnerships that manipulate all of these processes and all of our brainwaves everywhere. There are so many different things spread throughout the world that are hijacking this process in very, very aggressive ways. And the thing I would like this audience to know, because I know some of us get into like theories about various things and we talk about, that could this be happening? Could that be happening? The information that I get stronger and stronger every day, and I've been hearing this for years. I just been reviewing some of the material that was closed that I just stopped, haven't looked at in a while. But there's been a consistent theme that I'll share with you, that many have believed that sometime within the last several years and leading into what's going to happen now, the event should be happening by now. That there was going to be an increase in earthquakes globally, and that it would be because of artificial frequency manipulation. That a lot of it would be occurring because of devices like HAARP. It's hard to argue that HAARP could not create earthquakes. You can see that they're testing like underground. They're like looking for things that are buried underground using HAARP that aims up in the air. What does that tell you that they know about what we exist in? If aiming an omnidirectional inverted antenna up into the air does something to the ground that's underneath the antenna. See, they're connected. Get it? Just like this. So I showed you this other diagram here, right? That I drew. Where is that? Where is it? Okay, now take that and then add them together, 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 and you've got the Earth brainwave. All right. All right, so I have some material that I've done on this, folks. That I'm going to reintroduce you to if you've not seen it before. Oh, hang on. Oh man, I tell you what, that's so weak. I on my own channel, I forgot to update one of my playlists. Hang on. Gas discharge visualization. I just want to talk today about the system involving GDV, gas discharge visualization, and EPI, electrophotonic imaging,
and why it's a method that I've been discussing more
I'll be
recently.
back.
I've
Okay.
actually been researching this for, oh, I don't know, about 5 years now. When I was first going through a lot of the archives at the Freedom of Information Act library at CIA.gov, where I found a whole series of articles that referenced Correllian photography. And most of these articles are written closer to the early 70s, somewhere in the 80s, but most were close to the early 70s and involved research that had happened decades before and were more or less summaries of things that they were concerned about relative to politics and the Cold War, meaning to say that this was intelligence that they were gathering about the Soviets, the Russians, relative to what they knew about biofields and what they understood about electromagnetic fields and scalar technology, and also what they knew about energetics as a general field. America at the time did not have that sophisticated of a knowledge of energetics. I would argue that that maintains to this day. Um, and that's kind of a problem that we have. And so, what piqued my interest was just the sheer number of articles that had been declassified. And so today,
Sorry, folks.
beyond just showing you, I've shown you recently like the camera itself. I've given you some demos.
I got to say something. That was shady as hell. That was literally, it just paused my screen uh, as soon as I had to get up and leave just for a minute. So I really apologize, folks. That was bizarre. Nothing should have triggered that clip just to pause on its own. So weird. But back to it.
On it and why I'm interested in it. But I wanted to show you folks that this is not something that I'm interested in merely because of whatever. It's not just because I think it's cool or it's visually impactful. There's a whole series of documents that back this up as to why it's a relevant method and why even today there would be reasons to suppress it, just because simply that there's groups that would prefer to do things involving human energy concepts differently than the direction that others in the world are, which is to say that many of us have learned that we would like to go into the positive spectrum of energy, and we don't wish to engage in sort of the negative energetics, which is a way of, I guess you could say, of using psychoenergetics and psychotronic signatures and behaviors and weaponry devices, scalar technology to change the behaviors of larger populations in ways that are nearly undetectable to them individually. These are very subtle changes, and it's in the field of psychotronics. But there's also things that you can discuss as far as people's biofields and energetics that can validate the human biofield and why it's important for behavior to be changed relevant to human energy concepts. And so I don't want to get too deep into that concept, except just to show you and just read to you some of the things that I've seen here personally that are compelling. So this is from the Controlled Offensive Behavior document that the Defense Intelligence Agency released in 1972. I will put all the document numbers in the description, but reading from page 33, part 6, it says, as mentioned above, the Soviets seem preoccupied with the search for the energy that carries or facilitates telepathy transmission. Is it electromagnetic or not? The search for this unknown energy has led the Soviets to Correlating photography, named after its inventors Semyon and Valentina Krillian. The Krillians developed a technique of photographing with a high-frequency electrical field involving a specially constructed high-frequency spark generator tuned up and down between 75 to 200,000 electrical oscillations per second. Their first photographs showed turquoise and reddish-yellow patterns of flares coming out of specific channels within leaves. A magnified picture of a finger showed craters of lights and flares. By the 1960s, research on bioluminescence revealed by Krillian photography was going on in many Soviet universities. Perfected techniques of photographing the play of high-frequency currents on humans, plants, and animals, as well as on inanimate matter, have set the Soviets on some striking discoveries about the energetic nature of man. Bioplasma is a term coined by the Soviets for bioluminescent phenomenon or energy. Scientists at the Kazakh State University at Alma-Ata have found the illnesses tend to show up in advance as a disordered play of flares from the bioplasma long before they manifest in the physical body. According to Ostrander and Schroeder, the Soviets may be attempting to link Correlating photography with computers, among many other things, to instantly analyze the spectra of colors appearing in the varicolored flares from the living body. Effectively, folks, what I'm explaining to you here is that's exactly the system that I'm using. It is linking computers to Correlating photography to analyze the spectras of colors in the living body. And that's what you see in this illustration. And you can't see it here, but they actually had them in the declassified documents, an example of it. I just wanted that there for historical context so you could see it. But then we go on to page 35, and it says, it is believed that if there is any positive basis for Correlating photography in the bioplasma body of humans, the Soviets may be closer than is thought on the controlled use of the afore techniques and possible astral projection phenomenon. Variant.
Yeah. The astral projection phenomenon. I'm gonna be interrupting this one, folks. Oh yeah. You see, guys, there is a trinity of human energy. So we have like 3 different ways as humans that we can all have meetings, don't we? Right? So we all meet, I guess, when we all return to the soil. There's that. So that's one way of meeting. Not a lot being discussed there, though, right? Then, just like the trinity of human energy, you have your skeletal structure. Well, you have this, so we're all interacting here. I go, this is some of a hybrid between this and the next phase. Then you have the astral plane. So what happens there? And is one more important than the other? Is one more relevant than the other? Well, all of us are here in physical reality. So, yeah, we can sit there and say that our dreams are this, or that our astral projections, or that our astral meetings have less relevance. In my personal experience, the real heavy lifting gets done there, the biofield, the astral plane. Now, it's not necessarily safe territory. And if you don't know what's going on there, you can get eaten up by it, and it can eat you up. There's a lot of things waiting there that sometimes look good on the surface, or they may seem like they're a very good path, or that the information that you get there is the end all be all. I say no, any more than any place that's here in physical reality. There's places here that are very safe, and there's places here that are very dangerous and menacing. And all is true in that astral plane. All is true in the biofield. You can get hoodwinked, you can get manipulated, but you can also experience some of the most amazing, beautiful things. You can negotiate world peace, some would argue. And if you get the right interest of the right people, and they know you can, and they know you will, all kinds of things are possible. Greater awareness, greater understanding. It just depends on what you want to do with it. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Important to understand, folks, because it demonstrates that there's a scientific basis behind the link between plasma, bioplasma, the biofield, what we exist in as physical matter versus, other more esoteric concepts of the plasma field. This is a validation of that what occurs within the plasma field, your thoughts become things aspect relative to your bioelectrical field are extremely relevant. Okay. Especially when it comes to the field of psychotronics and how your behavior changes relative to frequency. So, part 8 says Dr. Podshevyakin, excuse me for my pronunciation, an electrophysiologist at the Institute of Clinical Physiology in Kiev, has found that by charting acupuncture points, a correlation exists between the bioplasma and changes on the surface of the sun. At the exact moment solar flares, sunspots occur, there are changes in the electrical potential of the skin's acupuncture points. These electrical charges are measured by a toboscope, probably a simple Wheatstone bridge device. In some way, the bioplasma of the body is sensitive to these solar explosions of the instant they occur, even though it takes about 2 days for the cosmic particles to reach the Earth. So, again, suggesting that the humans respond to the geomagnetic conditions created by the sun and the moon, full moon madness, right? All these things involving psychoenergetics. Are we impacted by the moon? What is it that does that? Well, that's an electromagnetic effect, folks. I mean, think about it. It's geomagnetic in nature. They're demonstrating that when the sun changes, the moon's conditions change, so do geomagnetic conditions. And as a result, so does the electrical field in the body. You can literally, you would have to take that into account if you were measuring your biofield to understand, like, am I changing my biofield relevant to the geomagnetic conditions? Is there a full moon? Is the sunset? I mean, all of those things would matter as well as where you are geographically. Part 9. The most significant use of Kirlian photography is in the area of psychokinesis or mind over matter. Dr. Gennady Sergeyev of the A.A. Ukhtomsky Military Institute in Leningrad believes Kirlian photography may uncover the mechanism of PK. Sergeyev is a prominent mathematician for the Soviet military who works closely with an electrophysiologist from the University of Leningrad, Dr. L. Pavlova. Sergeyev has devised important mathematical and statistical methods for analyzing EEG electroencephalograph, which allowed parapsychologists to follow and depict the actions of telepathy in the brain. The type of work reported by Sergeyev in 1967 and 1968 is just now beginning to appear in the U.S. efforts.
Telepathy exists. I won't hear anything else to the contrary. It exists. Many are using it, and I would say these abilities are just being amplified now. I think something happens energetically when you take away people's voices and physical reality. The karma cycle amplifies them in the non-physical, non-visible reality. And that's where you really, I think a lot of us are regaining our strength is in the biofield, which is partially in the astral plane, although I wouldn't necessarily say that's the same thing. But you're in the same realm, I would argue. And again, I don't claim to be the expert. I've just read a lot of these things, experienced a lot of things, and I've measured a lot of things. But I don't know anybody that's got a degree in this per se. But yeah, it gets really interesting coming up here when they start talking about the energy emissions from eyes relative to Kirlian photography. And this to me is everything, because when we get into the things about, forgiveness and love and, the eyes, those powerful eyes, those magnetic eyes that seem to draw people in to one another. Well, there's way more going on there. Your attraction to somebody's eyes and what they do to you. I can tell you that in my life, I mean, the women that had the most impact on me were the ones that just sort of I mean, like it was just like it was over like that. I mean, like they had me at that first look. It was just that it just went straight to the eyes. Of all the things that we say our eyes go straight to, I mean, no, that's the gateway of the soul, and everything that woman, manifests, creates. I mean, all of it's there. And so the ones that have like where you can just tell there's just something really, really strong happening there, it always manifests for the most part in them having very, very, sometimes exotic or just powerfully dark or light or just a very unique shade or something. But it's always going to be something nearly that is very unique and draws you in magnetically. And there you go. That's the electromagnetic field. That's the pineal gland. That was, God's way of giving that man or woman, whoever they are, something that draws people towards their words, draws them to their heart, draws them to whatever is flowing through their soul. And, I've been lucky enough to have some women like that in my life, definitely. And regardless of what, our where we wound up at the end of it, I can tell you the ones that had those strong eyes were the ones that taught me the most valuable lessons. There was something about them overall that was just earth shattering to my whole existence in a good way. It shook me. It shook my entire world. So yeah, they're going to get deep into that concept here, and then I'm glad that what this covers, because then after this I'll be talking more about the next topic. But pay attention to this part relative to Kulagina and her eyes.
To understand the transmissions of telepathy.
Kulagina.
U.S. Sorry.
Hmm.
Sergeyev has conducted several years of intensive lab research on the outstanding PK psychic in Leningrad, Nina Kulagina. Illustration 4 is a photograph of Dr. Sergeyev, and illustration 5 is a photograph of Ms. Kulagina. Sorry, I don't have the photographs here. They're not. You can't see them. They don't appear on the document. Sergeyev registered heightened biological luminescence radiating from Kulagina's eyes during the apparent movement of objects by PK. Sergeyev postulates that the bioplasma of the human body must interact with the environment to produce PK. Sergeyev emphasizes when target objects are placed in a vacuum, Kulagina is unable to move them. Barkus in the United States reports some unusual occurrences during psychic photography, especially of the eyes. Reportedly, Kulagina has caused the movement of wide range of non-magnetic objects under strict scientific control: large crystal bowls, clock, pendulums, bread, matches, etc. In one test, a raw egg was placed in a salt solution inside a sealed aquarium 6 feet away from her. Researchers report she was able to use PK to separate the yolk from the white of the egg. Observations by Western scientists of Mrs. Kulagina's PK ability has been reported with verification of her authentic ability. The same Western scientists have reported that as of February 1971, they have not been able to visit or observe her. A veil of secrecy has been placed on her and Mrs. Kulagina for unknown reasons. Has been placed on her for unknown reasons. Rather than simply observing PK, the Soviets typically turned to instrumentation. I'm trying to think if I should read this part here, guys. I think I'm going to go on to the next part here because this is deviating a little bit from the core topic of Kirlian photography. But I wanted you to see that, folks, because you can see there's a connection between psychokinesis and the electrical flow, geomagnetism relative to your bioelectrical field, and how these things are quantified and measured. Okay, and why are these things here in the West typically, concealed to this day, folks? I mean, this was written 1971. It's 2021 here. Let's think this through a little bit. 50 years later, and we're still hiding this in the West for the most part. I mean, yeah, I have one, but how many people know about it? You know. Okay, moving on to a new document here. This is from a completely separate one that I located that's called Articles X and Y from an Unidentified Journal. I'll put the document number here. This just gets into what the Soviets knew about Karelian photography. And again, this is a separate document, getting on to another one. R. Stepanov, Doctor of Medical Sciences Professor. Discharges are diagnosed. Correct diagnosis of a malignant tumor may be given only if during the operational. Hang on really quick here. I want to make sure I have this. Okay. Yeah, let's just start here. So it says, since 1967, work has been going on in the surgery department of the Kuban Medical Institute on the utilization of high often frequency photography for the diagnosis of precancerous states and cancerous tumors of the stomach. Together with ST Karelian and V Karelian, a procedure has been developed for obtaining high often frequency photographs of sections of some tissues taken from patients that are being operated on. In order to compare the results obtained by the Karelian method with other methods, we carried out simultaneous histological and histochemical investigations of these same sections. The results of the investigations convince us the fact that a clearly defined difference exists between high often frequency images of normal and cancerous tissue. The principal advantage of the new method compared with well-known methods is in its expeditious nature. However, because of the cancerous tissue can be photographed immediately after the operation and therefore does not have the time to change significantly, it is possible to study the physiochemical properties of this tissue under the conditions close to the conditions in the living organism. According to the characteristics of the channel of the high often frequency discharge, their geometry and energetic for a deviation from the norm, one may evaluate not only the extent of the tumor process, but also the dynamics of the malignant growth. And this is of a very great significance in precise diagnosis and consequently in the therapy of cancer. And then it goes on to say, no author listed. The principal distinguishing feature of photographing in a field of high often frequency current is this is basically, when they say high often frequency current, they're discussing GDV Karelian photography. What I'm discussing here is a method. There is also no need in illuminating the object during the photographing process. Therefore, it is very convenient to use the Karelian method to obtain photographs of surfaces to photograph by means of conventional camera. They proposed a special elastic electrode with a light-sensitive layer deposited on its surface. This simple device may be inserted into any cavity in a contracted state. It is then filled with a current-conducting liquid and connected for a short time to a high-often frequency oscillator. It allows that one can obtain a latent image of the entire inner profile of the cavity on the light-sensitive layer. The electrode, after having been removed from the water and retracted from the cavity, is again filled with the same quantity of liquid developed and fixed. The three-dimensional photograph that is obtained provides a possibility of detailed evaluation of the electrical state of any spot on the investigated surface. So again, this is just kind of giving you a broad overview of Karelian photography as a method. Leading on to the next page, bioenergetics and Karelian photography. An original healing method, biostimulation with a beam from a low, often powered laser, has been developed at the Kazakh State University by the Doctor of Biological Science in Yushin and his associates. Hypertension, bronchial asthma, and other illnesses that are difficult to treat can be treated successfully by this method. For a rapid evaluation of this physiological state of patients under laser biostimulation, natives of Alma Ata have developed a special installation whose principle of operation is based on the Karelian effect. The bioenergetic processes in the entire organism, when it is acted on by various physical factors, are evaluated quantitatively on the graphs. A new express method for evaluating the physiological state of a person was used not only in medicine but also in biology. What are the interesting facts that biologists have been able to discover? It turned out that the intensity of the illuminescence is maximal in young plant leaf and minimal in old ones. And at the instant a leaf is torn off, an abrupt flare of luminescence followed by a rapid attenuation is observed. However, if a plant is placed in a constant magnetic field, then the luminescence intensity decreases, while the duration of the attenuation increases by a factor of 2, 3. Under these conditions, the effect of the reduction of luminescence as a result of the reaction of a magnetic field is preserved for a long time, even in a case when a magnet no longer acts on the living tissue. It is the expressed evaluation of the bioenergetic state of living organism is not only the advantage which attracts biologists and physiologists to the Quillian effect. The new phenomenon which have been discovered still await their explanation. And so then they give you a series of articles to read. And then I'm going to leave you with this last one here. It's just sort of a general article that they were studying because they were concerned about, obviously, about what the Soviets had as an edge at the time, being the Cold War, and so they were collecting all this information and keeping it in their archives. And
All right. If you're curious, folks, I can I'll give you a link to the rest of this if you'd like to see the rest. But I didn't really, honestly, I wasn't trying to play the entire thing. I just wanted to give you like a basic overview of some of the other parts of military reports, like the Defense Intelligence Agency and the U.S. Army, what they had to say on the topic, why they are concerned about it. Well, okay. So everything I told you is more like in this sort of like, well, here's how you gain greater senses of awareness and healing, and here are things you can learn about the biofield relative to whether an object is living or non-living, or what kind of life force exists in something that allegedly is passed on, things of that nature. And I would say though that there's way more to it within the defense industry and wars and psychological warfare. Now you're getting into the real nitty gritty of why this is a potentially dangerous thing and why it's been abused for the most part by most governments and most agencies. Instead of them, here's what's so sad about this, guys. They weaponized all this. They weaponized all this beautiful process that is the human brainwave, Earth brainwave experience. Instead of just explaining it to us and letting us all share the biofield, it's been nothing but nonstop brute force MK Ultra entrainment, forcing us into modalities and beliefs if they can, as much as possible. And if you don't believe that these things are true, then you explain to me what's going on in the world right now. It is psychoenergetic manipulation. Everything we're witnessing for the most part. Today, as I really understood this, and I've understood this for a long time, but now, and I thought this even a few years ago, but it's so hard to lose your way when you're in the middle of this psychoenergetic, whatever it is. And especially when it's out there. It's the best thing I can tell you. Here in this country, psychoenergetics are being used on our population. It's in our infrastructure. It's in our public works. Just being real with you. When people say they feel weird energy, it's not coming from nowhere. It's that there's people that have learned that they can manipulate your human brainwave using water frequency. And that if they entrain the water near you to a certain frequency, they can get your body to entrain similarly, because water looks for water, oil looks for oil. Oil reaches out at a frequency level to oil. Water reaches out at a frequency level to other water. That's why when you're at the ocean and the waves are just going, some of us just like it better there. Hey, welcome, Tina. Appreciate you joining. It's good to see everybody. I'm sorry if I don't mean to leave anybody out, but that's why. And so once you become aware of that, let's just take away like, okay, yeah, we need to do something about it. I get it. That somebody needs to do something about psychotronics. I don't know what we do to solve this. Maybe this is going to be our big wake up call that there are so many different countries and governments and agencies globally that did this to one another, each other, to their own people, just simply because they wanted to have their opinion or their way of doing things dominate another, that they didn't understand the karma cycle that's involved with that. And I think those of us who do understand what that involves, we know that heaven is right around, it's right there. It's right next to us. It's actually waiting for us all around us. Because at a karma level, not talking about anything punitive, folks. It's just like when you try to hold back water, eventually a dam will break or something will break. They've held back and suppressed our biofield for so long that it's all waiting there for us. All the good things that you've been putting out your entire life, it really is waiting for you to receive again all of your good deeds. I would argue that most people have already received their karma for the negative and the punitive. They were being punished before they even could do anything. It was happening to a lot of people before they could even form their first thought. They've been entrained. They've been indoctrinated. So that puts me in a great state of forgiveness because I understand psychoenergetics and I know that this is happening. It's being used here in the United States. It's in your plumbing. It's in your neighborhood more than likely. And if it's not, somebody can bring it to your neighborhood easily. Sorry, I didn't do that. I got a good idea how and who and where and when. And I've talked about that at length. But at this point, I don't really care anymore because I can already tell nobody's going to do anything about that. What's going to end it is just one of these events that's on its way. And what I would like you just to like try to keep in mind is there's really nothing to fear. Okay. There's nothing to fear. And those of us who have been, look, none of us are perfect. Okay. And that's part of what I was trying to say today is that this happens to everybody. And the more you get it, the more you remain in a state of acceptance and love, even for those who have trespassed on you. I've had look, I'm not going to try to play victim, but some pretty ugly things happened to me the last, whatever number of years, and recently too. And I still remain, even though I'm being kind of quiet, I still remain in a state of acceptance and love and forgiveness because I know these things can make anybody go, and shake your whole world up, disrupt every thought going in and out. That's forgivable. It's forgivable. So I'm gonna say what I said earlier today. Now I actually, as much as I don't like what's going on, there's a part of it, this whole thing, it's a blessing. And I can't be angry. Yeah, I'm sorry that that's all happening. Look, I don't like to exchange symptoms and things like that, but my whole left arm, like, fingers and all the way up, like it's just constant electricity, guys. If you think that I just think gloriously of everything, no. Yeah, from my fingertips all the way up to past my elbow, it showers with electricity almost constant, and I can't make it go away. Yeah, sometimes it goes numb. So I know, all right? I know. So we got to do something, okay? And we will. And part of it is that those of us who can understand, we've got to just uh, make each other get it. Like fill in the gaps informationally. What do you need to know that you can get, that you want to? And then after that, what are the ways that we can rise above it? How do we resonate above it? I mean, I can tell you, yeah, I experience these things, guys, but I don't let it slow me down. I just don't. I mean, I was hauling three, 50 to 75-pound bags, um, through, I think one of my bus rides lately, I had, actually the last one it was good. I only had 2 transfers, but I think the one before that I did that was long distance was 3 or 4 transfers, and I had to do things like haul all those bags on the sidewalks of, like, Atlanta in one case, and that was interesting. All while this is going on, and my life at the time was it was in a total, you know what, storm, very tumultuous. But I still find the blessings, and I still find kind people. I still find genuinely good and decent people. They're there. I still find them, and I still have faith. It's not shook. It's not broken. And I believe right now that once you have this awareness about what this plasma field is and that what God is, then you must understand that the weapon of Satan, the weapon of Lucifer, whatever you believe that is, or the evil entity, would be radiation. Because radiation, artificially induced radiation of any type, interrupts the organic processes that make us what we are. But we're surrounded by frequency manipulation, and it's just a matter of getting it. Once you understand it, then you can develop the things to counteract it. And let me put it this way. Let's get back to this one slide that I had. All right. Or even the biofield things that I've been showing you, the aura. Some people in those auras, they've got all these flares and gaps in their auras and in their biofield. There's holes in it. It's not complete all the way around their entire body. And I would say, like, the more that happens to a person over time, the more it chips away at their biofield. That's chipping away at their entire life force. And hang on here because I'm a little bit off screen. All right. And that what you do when you love, what you do when you forgive, is you bind your plasma, your influence to them, and they to you. It's an exchange, but you're adding something to their biofield. Sometimes that's just a simple exchange of just one person sharing their knowledge with another, sharing their life, just sharing themselves, or just sharing whatever. But be conscious of what you're doing with your energy, because you can do both to the people around you. You can be the force in the room that chips away at everybody's biofield and makes them do what? Well, when your biofield reduces, when that around you begins to chip away and reduce, It means you have less to give others. You have less of your biofield to contribute to those who you would seek to heal, to help. And this manifests in behavioral things mostly. You'll feel depressed. You'll have no energy. You'll say, I really wish I could do that, but I can't right now. When before, if you'd been receiving positive messaging, loving messaging, that reinforces your biofield, that adds to it. This is what's called positive orgone radiation. And if you follow Wilhelm Reich or James DeMayo, that concept is POR, positive orgone radiation, the emission of life energy from the human body to another. You can heal people. You can contribute to their healing. And sometimes it's just simply through words. And if people don't understand that it's your role to uplift others, because when you uplift them and inspire them, they in turn do that for others, especially the ones closest to them. And they have the best ability at affecting their DNA when they share your DNA at a DNA level, or they've just merged their biofield with yours for a long time, sharing the same place. You become a family member in a way because of the way your biofields integrate. And so you have to think about that karma cycle, that everything you're doing is being passed along. So, even if you don't like somebody, ask yourself, do you not like the person that they love? Because the way you treat that person is going to affect the other. Strangers even. If you chip away at a person's biofield, then that'd be just like insulting a person all the time. That's one way of doing it. See, and again, I've had to reconsider all kinds of things. I ask myself, why didn't I discover this sooner? Why didn't I just understand this scientifically sooner? I knew this, but why didn't I understand the science of it to where, like, every time I started to, like, maybe lose my sense of knowing what's right and wrong to say at a moment in time? Why didn't I let it click in? This is my regret. This is what I'm processing now. This is why I feel forgiving towards everybody. And this is why I asked for forgiveness. Because there were times where I should have just paused in the midst of aggression and just offered to hold somebody or to love them purely, instead of respond and say, fuck you, get away from me, I don't like you. See how ugly it sounds? You know how ugly it feels? It's horrible. It's horrible to be on the receiving end of that kind of rejection from somebody you love. Don't ask me why in my own life, after feeling that so many times, that I didn't do better when I had an opportunity. So I'm sorry. I am. I wish I could be the person then that I am today, but I can't change it. So all I can do is hold my mistake up and say, I'm sorry. I wish I'd done better. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. So all I can tell you is that I don't care how or who trespassed on me. I forgive you. I love you. And I hope you love me too. And if I have the blessing again, to have some of you in my life like I have in any way, you'll get me at my best. And what I would want to do going forward is to make you feel as good as I can. All of you, every one of you. I don't ever want to be the person cutting somebody down or chipping away at somebody. We all get angry, and it's all right. I told somebody that, and I meant it. Tables are for stomping here. I got that from an Elbow song. Tables are for stomping. Act out. Get it out. Let it out. It's always safe to do with me because I'll forgive you. Or it just won't even bother me because I won't let it in a good way. It's not about, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying there, dude. Like, White Boy says, don't apologize. But what I mean to say, though, is it's not like that. This is just my way of, it's just my way of saying that I love you, all of you, and that I get that from a pure place. And I had to experience some really just horrible things to get there. And I'm glad that its effect in the end was, I don't know why the hell that crap's on the side of my screen. But it's all there. Let's all do better for each other. Let's all be our best, most authentic selves, but also just try to do better and forgive each other when we don't. And, those of us have kind of figured all this out and are figuring it out or on our way or already did and been waiting for everybody else to figure it out. Those of you who are waiting for me, thank you. And those who aren't there yet, I'll have my hand out when you're ready. All right. So, getting out of the foo-foo of my conversation here. Energy lines. I don't know. Do you guys want me to get into the Masons and the energy lines? I think we should. Because again, I'm not going to go menacing and dark on it. I want to share some things with you that I learned in my journey. Hang on, guys. Sorry, now my nose is running because I had my little emotional moment. All right, so I'm not gross here. All right. All right. Before I get into energetics and Freemason lines, I'll try to review some comments here and say welcome to everybody. So good to see you, though, Karachi. Good to see you here. I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, welcome. And there you are. Oh, Robert, thank you for joining. Hi, PW. Thank you for joining. Be nonsense. You're new to me, unless that's another screen name. But welcome, regardless. I appreciate you joining. So yeah, sorry if I didn't mention everybody. I apologize. Wordsmith, Corey. Sorry, I'll try to get Jesse. So thank you all for joining. Okay. Oh, that's interesting, man. Honestly, anymore, like this whole thing with race is so irrelevant to me now. I get it, but I just feel like the more they want me to focus on race and I just can't. I don't care. It was weird. Like the last couple of years, I just noticed that it was almost like because I've always had a pretty good, healthy perspective on race, and I was actually a person that had a a pretty honestly, I was aggressively liberal with it, so I wouldn't say that it was a healthy expression. I think the fallacy of a liberal perspective on race is that you actually wind up in the process of going overboard with political correctness and other measures that are in the same range, that you wind up robbing a person um, of their identity to some degree. You're not giving them even like a level playing field to start out on. You're just automatically defining them under some bizarre, rigid parameters and saying that they require something or need something. And I don't know. I just it lacks authenticity. It's not real inclusion. And I've been a part of like corporations I worked for. I was in like diversity and inclusion councils. I mean, I really did, man. I lived it, and I still believe in those things. I just don't like the way that I see them manifest in work environments. I don't want to get too deep into political things, but yeah, it is cool though to see that people have like these, different ways of looking at, you know, of biblical lore or the origin of man, and how races. I get it, but honestly, folks, I think once all the information is revealed about how we got here and what we exist in as a plasma field, that blood groups are probably more like representations of the color band and the prism that we all exist and project in. Like, that you'd know that you can't have one blood group without having the other, because you would have a color spectrum that would be lacking. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's really more. White boy and I are having a discussion on how race doesn't matter. It's funny though. The irony in our. But yeah, yeah, it's true though. And all right. So we are inseparable from God because we are inseparable from the universal plasma field, which we create as a collective hive mind. Earth brainwave equals human brainwave equals Earth brainwave equals human brainwave. Rinse, repeat. Just like I said when I was quoting the Gateway Experience and the other article, that your body and your brain tunes into the same core frequency, that Schumann resonance. You're right there in that 7 to 8 hertz range. And so you're in the creation cycle, you're in the karma cycle, you're in the God source energy at that point. And then it becomes easier to understand what I'm about to say, that races aren't really what we think they are. This is all just an experience that we're having. And really, it's about blood groups and what processes through your pineal gland and what you project outbound as a dominant color band. You're still receiving and inputting all of them, but the one that you're contributing to the most is one color band inside, or maybe a few. I don't know. I don't have that part all figured out. But to larger, some of us, like if you ask me, that within a rainbow, we create some of the color bands between us. And that when rainbows manifest, it's really brainwave to brainwave communication coming in from different directions. It's like awareness, and it's awakening. It's people getting excited about ideas. And as they get, hairs raise on their arms and they get excited and the goosebumps raise. I mean, goosebumps on your arms, if you think about it, is the plasma exiting your body in an excited state, in a creation state, because it actually creates those raises and bumps on your. See, you're manifesting something in through physical reality that started as an emotion. That should be your first sign that there's a miracle happening there, when the hairs raise on your arms and you get goosebumps. I want you to think about that, because that's frequency, vibration, and energy manifesting right in front of you. It's amazing. And getting to that point, I created this slide. This is one of the first things that I ever did to communicate what I was learning. I made this, wow, before I even understood half of it. That's me in a nutshell. Sometimes I just begin talking about something that I don't even have a full understanding of, and it's only through these repetitions of the conversations that I start to go like, "Oh wow, I guess I do understand it better than I thought I did," or entirely or whatever. But there you go. Organic communication layers are competing with inorganic communication layers. The good news is, ladies and gentlemen, though, this is happening. There is technology in place that does interfere to some degree. But you know what's different about, again, if you followed what I just said earlier, if you really understand it, maybe I should quiz people here. But out of all of these things that are here, which one of these machines, if you remember the report, I'm quizzing you guys, I want you to answer. Which one of these machines or parts produces a frequency that travels around the entire world? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Okay, sorry, I'm not going to be like that. It's your brain. A cell tower doesn't do that. I mean, some of them can, but not that one. And I promise you that even if you could develop a cell tower that could see clear around the world, it would not clear through every physical layer the way that the brain does. A cell tower, and I'm telling you this as a professional radio frequency design engineer, I did those. I mean, these right here, guys, just so you know, for years, those who don't know, I used to travel in one of those vehicles up to those sheds, go into those buildings, and maintain all those radios that would broadcast out of those big booming antennas you see on there. I was the guy. From 1997 to 2004, I went up many, many hilltops, went to many cell towers around town, and maintained those base stations that pushed those frequencies out. And I can tell you that the average cell tower back then in the late 90s, they had a radius of about 30 to 40 miles, not 10,000 or no, not 40,000 kilometers, or it couldn't go to, however many thousands of miles around the earth without attenuating hardly at all. No. In fact, like those big, massive, like 6-foot microwave dishes you're seeing on that tower, they're actually very susceptible to being blocked or to being attenuated. Hell, they can fade in a rainstorm. They can fade just by some large plane flying through the path of it and knock it offline. Not human brainwave. No, it's stronger than all of it. So, what's God's creation and what's not? Is that really stronger than you? And maybe by all of us understanding this very fact, we'll stop being afraid of that and understand that what's underneath it, what the only reason why these things even exist is because of what they learned about this. It's a replication of this human machine. And you're going to learn that every information technology, information system network, that's all it is. It's replicating the human machine and how we act brain to brain. Signal. Sorry about that. There it is. What a complex machine God made. Hard to argue, isn't it? You receive energy. Take a look at this. All right. going to that other one thing that I showed you earlier, right? With the two eyes, the pineal gland, the 3D prism. Let's take a look at the process from the side. You bring in energy from the sun, which is a big ball of energy, not necessarily light and fire, it's energy. And you receive light in contrast with the things around you. It's always making these comparisons. And that energy enters where? Through here. I would argue it also enters in through your eardrums, because every single thing you say and every single thing you hear matters. It can actually tear down your biofield. Negative messaging tears down your biofield. Positive messaging, although I would argue that, well, let me put it this way, guys. Positive messaging, POR messaging, does not always look like, I love you, you're the best, I think you're the greatest. Sometimes it means, hey, buddy, maybe you need to get your shit together. They're both love when it's coming from the right place, done in the right way. And I want y'all to know, especially some of you who've had to say things like that to me, I process that as love. I process that as POR. I don't think that you are trying to chip away at my biofield, and I won't play victim. Okay? I don't communicate that outbound either to anybody. I just kind of go, well, hey man, I got some things I got to fix or improve upon. And sometimes somebody has to have some strong words with me to get me on track, to help me out. And that's what I call being a good friend. That's what I call being a loving partner. Now, there's other ways of go about doing it. You could just sit there and go like, you're worthless. Why don't you do something? You're shitty. Well, that's DOR. You're not trying to make that person stand up. If you say to a person, you're better than this, you're smarter than that, you can do this. Come on. Come on, you can't do that. You can't be like that. You're better than this. You see the difference? You can give somebody some messaging that may not seem like, like you don't want to do it, but if you do it right, you're going to add to their biofield. You're going to make them feel better. Then they're going to turn around and do what? Probably make somebody else feel better. And they're going to be more inclined to try to make you feel better when you need it. Right? That's how we get the best from each other. And that's how we help others in ways that we don't even know. That's how you be a good Christian or a good Muslim or a good, whatever. Whatever you practice, or if you're pagan or whatever, guys, everybody's welcome here. You're all welcome. You don't have to believe what I do. To me, this is more about science, and I think we're just applying, spiritual. How do our beliefs and what we believe in bind to the plasma field and create what's around us? That's what this is really all about. I could care less how you got here. You're all welcome. So just remember that that's an input of frequency. That's an input of frequency. What you see matters, what you hear matters, what you say matters, because guess what? Karmically, it goes back into the brainwave, which gets output to where? To you, to everything, everywhere. How you treat others matters, because you're pinging their pineal gland. That pineal gland is going to shoot a signal out 40,000 plus kilometers. So make your messaging positive whenever you can and whenever you're capable. That would be my thing. Again, guys, it doesn't mean we live in, some ridiculous Teletubby form of kindness. That's not kindness. Some people call that spiritual bypassing. That's probably a good way of coining it. You think you're doing something good sometimes, but maybe not. Anyways, so the chakra system doesn't seem so silly anymore. Because all of it strikes the pineal gland and then sends its way out 40,000 miles, just like that. But that thing only sees 30 or 40 miles. See, your human machine is stronger than all this communication gear. You can achieve a lot by meditating, by praying, by just practicing patience, decency, honor. All right. On that note, some attribute negative intention to the number 33. I want to talk about 33 here, folks, because I know I do a lot of things at 33, and people sometimes, that doesn't always jive well with some folks. So I'm not going to apologize for doing it. I'm going to explain to you why I think the number 33 is relevant, and I have before. And it's because, like, it's like sometimes you need to have a common alignment, and 33 degrees as an azimuth is an alignment that I've observed has been used going back to ancient civilizations for a communication grid involving pyramidal structures and megaliths. A lot of this I got from Valery Uvarov's research, so praise that guy. He's incredible. I learned so much from him. That guy is a college and a school of learning in and of himself. For if anybody would take the time to go into his material, you're dealing with a genuinely decent, pure human there. And I hardly ever say that about the people that I encounter within this realm of research. That's just filled with people that have negative intentions or are either willfully ignorant or practicing chivalry. And he is one man out there that I've ran into their material that I just completely say, well, no matter how he got there, that guy's got pure intention. And that's why it makes me sad to see what's going on here with this whole conflict and the war, and people downing Russians and Russian culture and doing things to harm the culture and harm the people in ways that have zero to do. If you disagree with the government, guys, like, why would you do stupid crap like try to ban Tchaikovsky and Russian authors and musicians and crap like that in different countries, and then completely squelch the opinions and the voices of the people in that country to even explain maybe that they disagree with the war? Maybe some of them do. Maybe that's what they're trying to tell you, and they're not letting, this country wants to North Korea you and make you believe that they're all going grrr, when actually we have waiting probably over there in Russia, probably some of the most kind, benevolent people that have researched these things for decades. And you know what they discovered? You're going to find this is true, guys. And I believe this is going to happen in America. It's already happened to some of our leadership. People are going to have an existential awakening like you would not believe. It's happening. It's happening right now. And you're going to see miraculous changes in people that you never expected it to. And even if this isn't true, it's an opportunity for people that may thought they had no way of reversing their negative deeds or places they, who they've been or what they've done or whatever, to make amends to the global population and decide to be awake. Make a decision to just ride this wave and change your heart, because it's possible still. You actually can, especially those of you who have the most ability to change things in the most meaningful way. Those of you who are in, whether you're politicians or leaders, or I wish you understood how powerful you really could be if you just turned the mechanisms that got you where to today in the other direction to benefit humanity, instead of draw all of that towards you and yourself individually, to actually become a conduit for God, for everyone, to live with the grace of God by understanding what the universal plasma field is as a karma cycle. You can forget about the concept of God. It's a karma cycle. And even if you thought you had a way to transfer karma, delay karma, I don't mean this in any punitive sense. I'm saying that don't you understand that you could change everything for yourself and everyone else if you just flip that switch to do something different? So why am I talking about the Masons? Because everybody's always talking about 33 being this and that. Well, I'm going to tell you something, man. I've interacted with these folks. I'm not a Mason. I've just been in their environments or close to their things over and over again. And there's as many people involved with that group that are good, bad, and indifferent as there is any other. And quite a few of them just have a greater understanding of what's going on underneath us as it relates to what's above us. Once you learn and attain a certain level of knowledge within Freemasonry, just like Jesuits within the Catholic Church. I mean, they are at a high level of information awareness. They attain schooling, they get receive schooling, and they have access to books and learnings that nearly nobody else does. And they keep those things private. Mm, I'm not going to say for a good reason, but I think that there was understandable reluctance to share it too broadly. Um, because not everybody will do something good with this. But I would argue now we're at an impasse, and I think a lot of the high-ranking Freemasons would agree, actually, that are benevolent, especially that the time at which hiding this type of knowledge and schooling has value is over. The world that we exist in today is suffering as a result of this knowledge not being more broadly known, and it needs to be. It needs to be shared. It needs to be freely distributed. It needs to be sent out to as many people as often as possible. I used to do it every day, guys. Those of you who really got to know my channel like a year ago or so, you'll know I used to be on here almost every day, and I could go on for hours talking about this and everything else. If I have the ability to do it again, I may do it again. I don't know. I mean, I would really like to be doing something more where I'm actually building and creating what we're talking about. What would that look like? Well, it would look like a lot what Uvarov's team did in Tomsk, Russia. They are out there building, well, of all things, a 33 pyramids that have alignments globally. And while we here in the West will tend to mock that and act as if, okay, fine, they built some pyramids. So what? Big deal. I could do that in my backyard. Not the way they're doing it. No, they're doing it, and these are precisely built. They have precise alignments. They have enormous. I can't remember the size of the crystals, but they would fill up a whole room. Like the average small bedroom or whatever, this crystal would fill the thing up practically. It would be like a huge rock in the center of it that you could not avoid. And then they embed that in the center of these very precisely built pyramids that are in a compound that are all aligned with one another. And they know that once these things are all constructed and they're aligned perfectly, that this will create an energy field. It will create a communication grid that operates node to node globally. And then, if you really want to get into where it makes it really special, is it goes well beyond this physical plane. It becomes interdimensional. And then, what you have access to, once you get that and you become a part of that, then you begin, and some of you already have because you'll already get there. So you're already experiencing something based on something that you're going to do that you don't even know that you're going to do yet. And you're receiving the information now for something that is going to be you giving it back to you now. That's your higher self. They know about it. So what these slides are here to do is just to show you some really basic concepts of what 33 is when it comes to a Freemason lodge, But you can take this same thing that I'm telling you and apply it to the Bosnian pyramid. If I had the slides to that, I would just show you the Bosnian pyramid, but I just happen to do this one on the Maryhill Stonehenge relative to the Vatican and a Freemason lodge and the kind of alignments that you'll find typically there. Really quick though, if you were watching my material about a year and a half ago, you may have observed that I went to this place, and this is Maryhill Stonehenge. And this is on the Washington-Oregon border. It was built by a guy named Sam Hill, and he was a Quaker, and he built he built a lot of this for his wife, Mary, hence Mary Hill. He put a winery and well, it's a winery now, but I think it was just the mansion that he built for her in the middle of nowhere. Even to this day, guys, a lot of this is kind of middle of nowhere. There's not a lot going on out there. But if you go out there, there's no question there's a special energy. I've been out there many, many times. It's kind of like right in the center of this, well, not center, but yeah, it is, I guess. It's like right in between Washington and Oregon on the Washington side, literally on the Columbia River overlooking. When you're there at the edge of it, you can look at Washington, you can look at Oregon, you know, and if you're on the Oregon side, you can see the Maryhill Stonehenge from the other side looking that way. So it's really like right on the border. But the thing about these types of monuments is a lot of the people that build them had esoteric schooling. And so even within the standard structures that are out there, they would create the, like White Boy's saying, the obelisks. Yeah. You said the pyramids were the original frequency for good and the obelisks crystals. Yeah. And so again, this is a replication of these ancient principles within lodges. And so you're going to see Freemasons that are going to be doing it within the rooftops of their lodges, making the pyramidal structure in like the rooftop, like a, you know, doing this, and then you'll see it pointing out that way at 33 degrees. And again, what I think is part of their esoteric knowledge is the awareness that human brainwave travels across the entire globe. And so by putting a bunch of Freemasons inside a lodge and then creating all of these alignments, they're all focused on the number 33 for different reasons. Now, once you get to be a 33 degree, my understanding is you get everything that I'm talking here. Prior to becoming that type of Freemason, the 33 degree Mason, it's just simply a level that you're trying to get to, and you're going through all of these different rituals and schoolings and everything like that to get there. But it's not necessarily showing you this, you see. And my theory on that is that when they talk about the low level Masons versus the high level Masons, is part of that game is getting them to focus on attaining the level, and in experiencing like them, like focusing on it, concentrating on it. Remember, thoughts become things. And when you put people in the same room, at the same place, at the same time, in the same geographic location that's anchored and aligned 33 degrees, you get all those Freemasons in there, whether they're inductees or whatever, and they're all going, man, I want to be 33. I want to be 33. I'm not there yet, but I really want to be that 33. They're adding energy to it. They're fueling it. They're creating these energy lines. And what I'm telling you guys is, rather than being menaced by it, rather than being spooked by it, the thing to understand is that it pre-existed them. All they've done is reinforce it. They made it stronger. So what you do with it matters not what the Masons did. Those lines are there. When you discover them, like I have, I've got a whole database of them. I could show you something, man. In fact, I'll just hang on. When you discover them, this is like probably the safest way I can show you all my data relative to my energy lines and what I've discovered. And this isn't even my most up-to-date complete one. Hang on. I call it this is my Google Earth, but I call it my big ball of yarn. These are all the energy lines that I've discovered, created, added, or contributed to in the global energy grid. That's using Google Earth on my smartphone. I put my database there, and it's pretty amazing. The things that I discover that have these alignments, where you'll see two 33-degree lines synchronized, or a 333 or a 303-degree line synchronized with a 33-degree line. And you're like, how did that even happen? But if you start doing this and you start understanding it, you'll get everything that they get by being a 33-degree Mason, if that's what you're really looking for. But I would say, like, again, it's pays to understand it. It's good to understand it and everything else like that. But, you don't necessarily have to do the same thing. It's just know that it exists. Don't be threatened by it or menaced by it. Know that it pre-existed them, and that it does involve this ancient energy grid that'll just create alignments. If you don't believe me, then ask yourself, how the hell did Sam Hill, a Quaker back in the early 1900s, without satellite imagery, without really having access to an internet or whatever else, how did this happen? When you take this line here, see this blue line at 33 degrees, it winds up here. So see that? Mary Hill Stonehenge, 33, follow the line all the way out. It goes right there. You know what that is, right? That's the Vatican. You go 33.1 degrees. So again, I don't know how he got it so freaking close to exactly 33, and there could be some slight variation offsets. Maybe I'm a little bit off. So 0.1 is hardly even a deviation. My point, though, is you get straight. Go ahead and do it yourself in Google Earth. Put a pinpoint right in the center of Mary Hill Stonehenge. Use your line tool. It's this thing right here. You just go up to Google Earth, you click on ruler, and then you click on this, hang on. Well, basically you click on the line, and then you drop your anchor where you start, and then you just keep going, you just follow it all the way around until you hit the other end of the earth at about 10,800 nautical miles, I should say. It is where it winds up. You just draw the line from one side of the earth to the other, and then you just review, where did it go? What does it cross? You will fall in love with maps and everything in the world if you do this. It is so trippy. The things that you learn about all of these bizarre alignments, it is so freaking weird, but miraculous. I mean, it's not spooky or anything like that. It's actually pretty miraculous. But yeah, I mean, I would argue that these weren't tools of some evil entity. I just think that it's something that people can co-opt. You see what I'm saying? That's all. It's something that anybody can use for good, bad, or indifferent purposes. Yeah, some people will say, well, they want to do something negative on a 33-degree line because they're trying to program it with what? Their intention. They want a negative outcome. They want power from trauma. And there's others that say, no, I want to create a global communication grid that we can all talk to one another on telepathically. I want us to have better relationships globally. I want us to have, world peace. I want us to have, abundance for everyone. Because it's possible. When you see it going this ridiculously bad, somebody has the capability to flip a switch and make it go exponentially better in the other direction. And that does exist within our physical realm. The ascension, as I understand it, is that is happening right now. And look, you can believe it or not, but people are going to surprise you. You're going to be surprised at how many people that you thought were only looking out for themselves, or were, just some evil global or whatever kind of person, how capable some of those people are of changing. It's weird, folks. If you think about it, thoughts become things, and thought form entities gather and accumulate and program all physical matter. So if we keep telling a person or a group or a thing that they're bad, 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 you're this, you're that. Look, I'm disappointed in the way things are going. I definitely vent sometimes, but maybe we should switch that a little bit. Not be foolish, not be dumb, not fall for their act. I mean, just say, I believe you can be better. I'm going to just like sit down and meditate for a bit. And I'm going to manifest in my own mind, in my own pineal gland, because I understand that there's power in that. You doing something better than you're doing now, you being kinder, you being more generous, you being more decent, you solving problems instead of creating them. But what they train us to do is wish for their destruction and their demise. And karmically, that's negative. That does something harmful to you and them. It might work, but it'll work on you too. That's what's caked into God's plan. It's kind of brilliant when you think about it. Very simple. Here's an example of a Mason lodge that I haven't been inside it, but I used to work as a system performance engineer. I used to drive test all of rural Oklahoma, around surrounding Oklahoma City. And one area I used to cover, well, basically I covered Oklahoma City, Edmond, shoot, where else? Enid, um, Ponca City, and Perkins, and Stillwater, and Guthrie. Why is Guthrie so fascinating? Guthrie is home of one of the largest Freemasonic lodges that you'll ever see. It is incredibly big. And it looks like it's straight out of Washington, D.C. I mean, literally, it does not look like any other building anywhere in rural Oklahoma, let alone any of the major population centers. And Guthrie's not even one of the larger ones. But you'll notice, man, this is what you'll find in all these places, right? It's there. There's the 33. It's the highway number. That's also called Noble Road. And then if you zoom in to the center of this building, and then set your center point there and aim at 33 degrees. I mean, you see what happens there? This road is 33. And so literally when you're at the Mason Lodge and you aim 33 degrees, you overlap. As soon as you leave the compound, the first street you run into is Highway 33. Pretty cool, huh? When you aim that azimuth, see, so 33-degree azimuth crossing Highway 33, everything has multiple meanings. 33 is not just a master mason level, it is an angle and alignment that travels across the entire globe like a man-made ley line. That's why I don't really get upset with masons, guys, because you'll learn this if you learn about them. That's all. I don't know what exactly they're doing with it, but I have encountered some pretty decent ones, as well as I've encountered some pretty Nazi'd up ones. So they can be of all varieties, guys. And trying to say that they're all one and the same is a little bit like saying all plumbers and all electricians are the same. They're just not. So again, we program people with our behavior to a degree. Thought form entities are very powerful that way. And every emission that we experience of thoughts, especially on that when they're strong and they have a lot of energy attached to it through expressions of anger, lust, whatever they are, love, all of it, all of those things have plasma attachments. So for a long time, guys, I bought into a lot of the same things. I just would say, oh, that's got to be this. And they did all these things, and people told me so on the internet. Well, guys, you can take that to all kinds of different levels, you know? So you just can't believe everything that you see, read, or hear anymore. Especially now that we have deep fakes inside the the news cycle. I mean, guys, like, have you seen these things that are going on right now? It used to say, like, I'll believe it when I see it. You can't even believe it when you see it, and unless it's like right in front of you. That's about the only time you can really know. And even then, what do you know? On that note, can you believe everything you see? I put this clip from the remake of The Manchurian Candidate as a reminder. Watch this very carefully. Hopefully, I don't get dinged on my on copyright or something. But check this out. Now you see it. Now you don't. Now you see it. Now think about it. This movie was released in 2004. Now, again, consider this. It is a movie, yet the technology has to exist to even show you it in a movie. They're just showing you how special effects works with CGI and face masking. How do you know what you're getting so angry and upset about even happened? How do you know the person that you're angry at is the right person to be angry at? Who has these tools? The same people that are beating the global war drum. They're using these tools in our media cycle right now to hoodwink you, to fool you, to get you upset. They want you as angry and upset as many people as possible so they can just prevent you from learning all of this. It really is breaking down to that. They don't want you awake. They don't want you to know how your mind and your brain and your whole plasma field actually works. And you're right, it's all there. So I'm gonna get a little bit more into Q&A here. Those of you who want to ask questions, feel free, or if you're whatever, I'm going to be a little bit more free form for the rest of this. and show you just a few more things that have been helping me lately. Like I've been watching this channel to get some of the news. Like if you want a different perspective, that's not the MSM that is lying and just showing you CGI and deepfakes constantly. I can't tell you that Gravitas and WION aren't doing that. I just know that when I watch their channel, it just seems like they're actually reporting things, or at least making an honest effort to. And they're not sugarcoating things, and they're not making things too salacious. So for now, I'm giving a thumbs up to Gravitas. They're an India based news organization. And so I think that that's actually a really, there's something about the Indian culture and the positions that they tend to take as a nation compared to some of the rest of the world, that I think that makes getting news from them, uh, I would say it's a good thing to do, really. I mean, a lot of times here in America we say things like, but I read the Guardian UK, or I read like, I don't just read the New York Times, I read the Guardian, I read BBC. Okay, you know birds of a feather. Different continents. Yeah, I'm just sharing with you guys some of my Twitter posts. I put, many are experiencing ascension right now. It seems like hell sometimes, but it's actually the final gasp of this false reality. Stay calm, allow your mind to bend the plasma field in accordance with God, and it will begin to change everything around you. I put, compare Gravitas Wyong coverage of Havana syndrome compared to U.S. media organizations. I challenge any Twitter follower to find a Western media organization that has covered this in any meaningful way. Yeah, they did a whole thing on the Havana syndrome in Cuba at the what do you call it? At the Cuban embassy, the U.S. embassy in Cuba. And mainstream media organizations here in the States kind of did these, like, barely covering it, kind of sweeping it under the rug, never discussing it in a meaningful way. Whereas Gravitas did a whole, like, they showed you frequency analysis, they discussed the symptoms, they actually played a sound of what some of the people were hearing inside the facility. They actually made it like, way more in depth and in everything, and actually address the issues face on. So, okay, so White Boy says 60 Minutes did one and it was weak. I would expect that because, again, I would, if anything, I would expect these types of sonic weapons to be originating from networks like CBS instead of them doing something about it, frankly. So again, guys, getting back into this theme, human brainwave is about the same as Earth brainwave in the extremely low frequency range, and can reach another human being through a Faraday cage without being blocked. So you're accessible, and all right, this is all the Nazi things. Oh yeah, I forgot. Here, I'll just share this with you guys really quick. If any of you are ever into Alex Gray, yeah, this is kind of cool actually. I found this when I was sorting, because I don't have the print anymore. It's been stored away someplace, and for all I know, it's been thrown out, which would break my heart. But oh well. I mean, again, it's all, like I've been saying, these are 3D problems. We're all gonna have something better, happening soon. But I put that I met the artist Alex Gray. Those unfamiliar, if you don't know him from just him individually as an artist, you probably recognize his style. If you're into like different kinds of, like, if you're into Tool, for example, anybody ever listened to Tool? Alex Gray did a lot of the artwork for Tool, especially around, I think, the second and third albums. He was getting heavily into doing things with them. But this was one of the things that he had up on his mural in New York City, and I actually saw the original when I was in New York. So I've seen, not just, it's not like just some painting or whatever. It's actually takes up a whole wall. It's like a mural. and it's very detailed and intricate. It's an amazing piece, and I stood in line for a while to get it signed, and I was the last person in line, and there he was. He put a little pyramid with an eye and said, "To Gabe in unity, Alex Gray." So, anyways, that was one of my really, that was actually one of my. I felt very blessed that day. I'll put it that way. It was a very cool time. And the reason why I wanted to remind you guys of like, and again, I'm not trying to go negative here or anything else like that, but this is just me trying to talk about some of the things that have been known for a long time about timelines. I mean, there's a movie called Wizards from 1977 by Ralph Bakshi, if that's how you say his name. An evil wizard discovers an old projector and reels of Nazi propaganda footage from World War II, using his magic to enhance it for psychological warfare, inspiring his own soldiers while horrifying enemy troops into submission. So again, a movie that's about warlocks and wizards and everything like that, but the main weapon of Black Wolf, the villain, is he subdues everybody into submission by Nazi imagery. Think about it, guys. Think about the message that's really being communicated in this. See, this wasn't happening in his physical reality. He just simply showed footage that made them believe it, and it motivated and scared enough people into submission. Why am I having a hard time finding it? So it is, man. But see, that's the same thing. This clip here is the same thing. But see what he says, even the ancient key of war is the key to creating hysteria and fear gods. So how do you counteract that, or how do you create, a counter to balance out what they're doing? Well, I would say that the thing that we probably shouldn't do is to get excessively into playing their game the same way. You know, you have to exit. You have to exit the mechanics of negative energy, and that's another Uvarov phrase that I'm using there. That's Uvarov's. The mechanics of negative energy that they had mastered, that they borrowed from ancient civilizations that practice things that are like ritual sacrifice in front of crowds, because they were doing these things in pyramids and energy structures that were called energy accumulators. So they exist here now, guys. We just don't know when to recognize an energy accumulator. We don't know when it's in our neighborhood. We don't know when it's like right around the corner from us. We don't know that sometimes it's our favorite show. We don't even understand sometimes that it's the news that's the energy accumulator, that's playing with our psyches and our subconscious all the time and making us believe things that are negative and feeding energy to what? Things that fuel and add to their symbols, that fuel and add to their bloodlines, that fuel and add and make them stronger. At what cost? The reason why they get stronger is because every minute you dedicate to deadly and destructive and dark orgone activities involving fear and trauma, It's them removing your biofield, and you have less available to give POR, to give life affirming, healing energies to the right people at the right time. Don't even ask who, why, where. Don't even be concerned about it anymore. Just know when that's happening and know when you can't be doing it or you can't allow yourself to be susceptible to it. I had to. And sometimes the not comfortable, but you got to. It's just necessary sometimes. And other times, not so much. Sometimes you actually have enormous ability to change and influence somebody's heart. Sometimes you actually have an enormous ability by being in a messed up situation to change it for the better. I'm personally I've learned that over and over. I've entered into dangerous situations. I've entered into hostile situations that I was conscious and aware were dangerous and hostile towards me. And I said to myself, you know something? I think that even if it doesn't happen immediately, that even if something happens bad here, that in the long run, whoever it is or wherever they are, they're going to become awake and aware. And once they realize that they, judged me in the wrong way or did something to me that was whatever, that my ability to forgive them and their desire to want to do better just for themselves and others will solve everything, and it won't be an issue anymore. And that's a better method to take, an approach to take, if you ask me, than just simply saying, well, no, not at all, or whatever. Like, I mean, it's not for everybody, but it is for me. I've done that in multiple situations and they didn't all turn out good. In fact, many turned out really bad. But see, I would never have had the opportunity to turn around some of those situations or some of those people and get myself on a better path and get them on a better path had I not walked into those hostile situations, sometimes more than once. It was what changed them. It's what made all the difference. Just the same way that my heart was capable of going to a much better place. And I think that I'd already done a lot of heavy lifting, guys. I mean, obviously if you hated me, I don't think half of you would be here. But I still have work to do, and I had work to do to be my best, most authentic self so that I could be that for others. So, yeah, that's awesome. See, if all we're doing here is sharing this idea and allowing it to grow inside our hearts and minds and become more real, and if all this does, guys, is one person in here this one time, if it resonates with them and they just make that decision to say something kind to somebody else, that'll return to me. So even if I'm just selfish, at least I'll know. So thank you for those comments, and I really appreciate it. And you've changed me. You here, you all, you have changed me for the better. You have all contributed to my biofield as well as to my channel, which, by the way, guys, I got to get some gear. So I'm not going to lie to you. Anybody who can contribute right now, it would be awesome. I do need to get a computer replaced and some other equipment to get some of this testing done. But you're going to be seeing, and I'm going to be showing it to you in the next few days, some material on energetics that's really good. And it's going to affirm all these things about life energy with meters and everything. So be on the lookout for that because it is coming. I'm not just saying it, guys. I'm tuning all my gear and getting it all ready. But I wanted to do this tonight because it needs to be sort of a basis through which to build off the rest of the material. But thank you again for joining. I'm going to sign off now. Yeah, be blessed, be good. Thank you. I love you.